Scorpio, let me ask you something. What if this was your final warning, but you didn't know it? What if everything falling apart in your life right now is not chaos, but choreography? You haven't lost your mind. You've stumbled onto sacred timing. That creeping anxiety in your chest, that sudden wake up at 3 a.m., that person you haven't seen in years suddenly appearing in your dreams. That's not coincidence. That's spirit. And spirit doesn't whisper anymore. Spirit is screaming. You're being asked, no, summoned to choose a path before it disappears forever. This is the threshold, and this may be the most important 60 minutes of your life, because it's not just about where you're going. It's about what and who cannot go with you. So if your heart's been heavy, if you've been feeling like you're being pulled in two opposite directions, you're not wrong. You're being invited into the kind of transformation most people run from. But you, Scorpio, were born for this. You are the sign of endings and beginnings and resurrection. But here's what no one tells you about resurrection. First, you have to die. So I'll ask you again, what if this was your final warning? Would you ignore it, or would you finally listen? Let's begin. Part 1. The disturbance begins, Scorpio. Before the world ever breaks around you, the soul sends a signal. Not loud, not violent, but quiet, like the soft breath before a scream. It doesn't come in a flash of thunder. It comes in small things, a sudden drop in your energy, the feeling of time moving too fast, as if you're watching your own life from outside your body. You forget simple things. You remember strange things, and no matter what you do, you can't seem to feel settled. At first, you think it's fatigue, or anxiety, or just a bad week. But deep down, you know something is stirring, something that doesn't belong to your routine, but to your fate. This is what I call the sacred disturbance, a subtle but unstoppable wave that comes when your soul has already outgrown the life you're living and your body hasn't caught up yet. You may not be able to name it, but it knows your name, and it's been calling you quietly until now. Let me tell you something true. There was a Scorpio woman I once spoke with, sharp mind, gentle eyes, a fire under her skin. She was everything the world applauded, a strong woman, responsible, graceful in her pain. But every night her dreams whispered things she didn't want to hear, images of bridges collapsing, of being late to flights, of looking for someone she knew but couldn't find. And the worst part, in every dream she knew she was supposed to leave, but she never did. She told herself it was just stress, a seasonal wave, nothing more, but her spirit disagreed. First, it attacked her rest, she couldn't sleep. Then her memory, then her body. Until one day she looked in the mirror and saw someone she didn't recognize, not because she had changed, but because she had forgotten who she truly was. She came to me when the disturbance could no longer be denied, and what I told her was simple. You've stayed too long in a life that ended months ago, and now you're the ghost haunting yourself. That shook her, because she knew it was true. So I'll ask you, Scorpio, have you been haunted lately, not by something dark, but by the version of you that you've buried beneath responsibility, relationships, survival, silence? Because what you're feeling now isn't anxiety, it's emergence. You are not breaking down, you are breaking through, but only if you listen, only if you stop calling this divine disturbance a mistake. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. Not everything that falls apart is falling against you. Some things are falling out of your way. And sometimes the most violent endings begin with a whisper. Life Lesson, Part 1. When the soul starts to whisper, do not wait for it to scream. Your discomfort is not a curse, it is the first sign of your becoming. Part 2. The exit portal appears. There are moments in life that don't look like turning points until you look back and realize everything changed. But for Scorpio, you don't get to look back, not this time, because the turning point is now, and the doorway is still open, but not for long. There is a strange pressure in the air right now, a weight that doesn't quite touch the ground. Time feels distorted. You start something and it slips away. You finish something and it doesn't feel done. You know something's coming, you just don't know what. That's not paranoia, that's prophecy, because you are standing at the edge of an energetic exit, a moment of divine interruption, where you're being asked to leave behind a version of yourself that can no longer survive what the universe is about to reveal. And here's the truth no one else will say. Most people miss their exits, not because they didn't see them, but because they were afraid to move when everything felt uncertain. The universe never drags you forward, it invites you, but only once. After that, you're left with the life you chose to keep when you had the chance to change it. This new moon approaching, it's not just a phase, it's a portal, a rare energetic threshold where the unseen becomes seen. And if you don't release what's holding you back, that portal will pass, and with it your ability to shift timelines. Let me be clear, this is not about manifesting a better job or calling in a soulmate. This is about whether your soul will be allowed to complete the cycle it was born for. And the reason you felt so unsettled lately is because this exit requires more than a choice. It requires a funeral. You cannot bring your past into your future and expect to be free. What needs to die? Scorpio. What truth have you known but avoided? What relationship, identity, memory, belief has already expired and yet you keep trying to revive it? Because you cannot walk through this gate dragging dead weight. And I say this not to scare you, but to remind you who you are. You are Scorpio, the sign of death, of transformation, of rebirth. No one walks through fire like you. No one resurrects like you. But this is not about potential. This is about permission. You must give yourself the permission to go. Let me tell you something that may haunt you if you don't listen. I once knew a Scorpio man who waited too long. He felt the shift. He had the signs. He knew deep in his bones that something had to change. But he said, "I'm not ready." He wanted one more year, one more chance, one more sign. But the universe doesn't wait for readiness. It responds to alignment. And when the moment passed, so did the opportunity. His life didn't fall apart. It just stayed the same. And that, he told me years later, was the cruelest outcome of all. Because nothing is more painful to a Scorpio than a life half lived in a world they were meant to outgrow. Life Lesson, Part 2. A doorway will never beg you to enter. It will simply open once, and if you don't walk through, you will spend the rest of your life standing at its memory. Part 3. The Death, the Fool, and the Tower. There are times in life when a single symbol is enough to shake you. But when three ancient archetypes appear together, it's not just a message, it's a cosmic reckoning. The Death, the Fool, the Tower. Each one alone can shift a lifetime. But when all three speak at once, you're not being nudged, you're being reborn. Violently, urgently, and whether you're ready or not is irrelevant. Let's begin with the one you know best, the death. People misunderstand it. They think it means loss, tragedy, endings, and yes, it does, but not in the way you fear. Death is not the villain, it's the great liberator. It walks into the room and removes what your soul has outgrown when you are too afraid to let it go yourself. Death doesn't ask for permission. It clears the path. It silences the noise. It strips away the illusion so that only the truth remains. And you, Scorpio, were born under this archetype for a reason. You understand that to truly live, something must first be allowed to die. So if you've been clinging to something, an identity, a relationship, an old dream, and it has started to decay in your hands, don't ask why. Ask what needs to be buried so you can finally rise. Now comes the Fool. The Fool is misunderstood too. They call it naive, reckless, immature. But what the Fool truly represents is sacred surrender. It is the courage to walk toward the unknown without a guarantee. It is the voice that says, I don't know what comes next, but I trust the pull. Scorpio, here's the hard part. You're not always comfortable being the fool. You want control. You want certainty. But this portal, this new chapter requires a leap with your eyes closed and your soul wide open. And finally, the tower, the one people fear the most, because it doesn't ask, it dismantles, suddenly, brutally, without negotiation. But the tower doesn't destroy what's real. It only shatters what was built on lies. If the death is the final breath and the fool is the first step, then the tower is the earthquake in between that clears the land for something holy. And Scorpio, you're standing inside all three. This is not metaphor. It's not drama. It's your life. And everything is asking you to stop trying to fix what's falling apart. Let it fall. Because what remains after the fall will be the part of you that cannot be shaken. Let me share something personal. Years ago, I watched a Scorpio man lose everything. His job, his marriage, his home, one by one, all within 7 weeks. He thought it was punishment. He thought he was cursed. But what he didn't realize was he was being emptied. Because the version of him that had built that life was no longer aligned with who he had become. And once the dust settled, he saw the truth. He hadn't been abandoned. He had been saved. Because if Spirit hadn't torn down that tower, he would have died inside it. Scorpio, maybe that's what's happening to you. Maybe this isn't destruction. Maybe it's divine intervention. Maybe this is not the end of your story, but the moment your real story finally begins. Life lesson. Part 3. When death stands at the door, let it in. When the fool calls you forward, follow. And when the tower begins to fall, don't try to hold it up. Let it crash, because only what is false will break. Part 4. The collapse of old structures. There comes a moment in every Scorpio's life when the ground beneath them starts to shift. But not from outside forces, not from betrayal or heartbreak or tragedy. This time, it's internal. Something within you begins to rise, and it demands that everything around you either evolve with it or be left behind. It is the moment when the soul outgrows its scaffolding. And Scorpio, no matter how carefully you've built your life, you're not here to maintain what was. You're here to dismantle what no longer holds truth. The structures are beginning to fall, not because you've done something wrong, but because you've done something right. You've grown. And now the universe is forcing the walls to match your expansion. This is the Saturn effect. When Saturn arrives, it brings 2 gifts, discipline and destruction. It points to the structures you thought were permanent and asks, who told you this was safe? Who told you this was your forever? Your job, your title, your family name, your role as caretaker, your attachment to stability. Saturn shows up and says, now we see if it was built on truth or on fear. Let me tell you about a Scorpio I once knew. He was the rock of his family, the one who kept things together, paid the bills, held the secrets, absorbed the silence. He wore his strength like armor, but strength can also be a cage when it stops you from evolving. One day, his body gave out. No diagnosis, no explanation, just collapse. And what came next was the unraveling of the lie that being needed was the same as being loved. He had built his life around being useful. And when that usefulness faded, he realized he had nothing left to hold. But here's the grace. Once he stopped holding everyone else, he finally learned how to hold himself. That's the kind of truth Scorpio must face now. Because many of the structures in your life were built on survival, on self-sacrifice, on generational pain. But Spirit is not interested in what helped you cope. Spirit is only interested in what helps you become. So if things are falling apart, if the family dynamics are crumbling, if the job no longer fits, if the titles, the labels, the roles all feel too small good, that's not failure. That's architecture being redesigned by your higher self. And if you feel lost in the rubble, just know this. You are not what's collapsing. You are what's rising through it. Life lesson. Part 4. When the foundation breaks, don't rush to rebuild. Let the dust settle. Let the silence speak. Because what Spirit wants for you is not a better version of your old life. It's a life you've never known, but were always meant to live. Part 5. The Scream of the Ones You Leave Behind. Not everyone will celebrate your freedom. Some will call it betrayal. Others will call it selfish. But the truth is far more unsettling. They never loved your soul, only your silence. Scorpio, when you start to rise, you disturb the people who built their power on your willingness to stay small. They won't say it that way, of course. They'll say things like, "You've changed. You're cold now. You used to care." But what they really mean is, you stopped letting me feed off your light. And here's what no one tells you. The moment you begin to walk away, not physically but energetically, they will feel it and they will panic. Because people always feel when they no longer have access to the version of you that made them feel in control, you will notice it in the sudden text messages, the late night phone calls, the sudden apologies that sound like poetry but feel like poison. You'll feel it in their eyes, not filled with love but possession. As if your growth is a crime and your distance is disloyalty. But listen to me now, Scorpio. You are not abandoning them. You are simply refusing to abandon yourself. I once knew a Scorpio woman who was entangled in a relationship that dimmed her slowly. It didn't look toxic from the outside. No shouting, no chaos, just slow erosion. Every decision had to be explained. Every dream was met with subtle doubt, every success a silent punishment. And yet she stayed. Because he told her, no one will understand you like I do. And part of her believed it, until one day she realized he never understood her. He only understood how to keep her afraid of being alone. When she left, he didn't cry, he didn't beg, he exploded. Not because he loved her, but because he lost control. And that, Scorpio, is the scream of those you leave behind. It's not about grief. It's about power, about access, about the panic of no longer being able to reach into your light without your permission. This is the part of your journey where people will project their wounds onto you. They will accuse you of heartlessness, of arrogance, of forgetting who you are. But what they really mean is you stopped being who they needed you to be in order for them to feel powerful. And yes, this part hurts. It hurts to see people you once loved become strangers. It hurts to be called cold just because you finally set a boundary. It hurts to be resented for no longer being willing to shrink yourself to fit someone else's story. But this pain is not punishment. It is the price of liberation. And Scorpio, you've paid enough already. So when the screams come, when they try to pull you back, when they cry, not out of love, but out of entitlement, you must remember you are not their oxygen. They are only choking because they forgot how to breathe without you. Life lesson. Part 5. Sometimes the loudest cries aren't cries of grief, they're echoes of control unraveling. Don't mistake someone's panic for proof of love. If they only reach for you when you begin to walk away, they were never holding you, they were holding you down. Part 6. A new role in the light. For most of your life, Scorpio, you've been more comfortable in the shadows. Not because you were afraid of the light, but because the light never felt safe. Too many eyes watching, too many expectations, too many people who wanted your magic, but not your truth. So you learned how to hide in plain sight, how to blend in, how to give just enough to be accepted, but never so much that someone could truly see you. Because being seen, really seen, meant being misunderstood, or worse, being used. But here's the shift, you're not hiding anymore. Something in you has changed. The mask is too heavy, the silence too loud, the waiting too long. You've walked through fire, you've buried parts of yourself no one knew existed. You've rebuilt in silence, healed in private, and grieved without applause. And now, you're being called forward, not just to survive, not just to start over, but to lead. You are no longer the one looking for the light, you are the light. And Spirit is asking you to own that role, even if it terrifies you. Because, Scorpio, there are people watching you right now, not in judgment, but in quiet hope. They're watching to see what happens when someone like you finally stops apologizing for existing. This role is not about ego. It's not about being better than anyone. It's about being someone who's walked through hell and learned how to carry water back. It's about turning your pain into power, your shadows into shelter, your past into prophecy. I once knew a Scorpio who avoided leadership her entire life. She didn't want to be seen. She preferred to sit in the back of the room. She said, "I'm not the voice. I'm just here to support the ones who speak." But the truth was she was born to speak. She just didn't want the responsibility that came with it. Until one day her community fell apart, the leader vanished, and people were looking for direction. And without planning it, she stood up. Not with a speech, not with a performance. She just told her truth. And it shifted the entire room. That's what happens when Scorpio stops doubting their light. Not everyone is meant to lead armies, but everyone is meant to lead themselves. And in doing so, you become the quiet permission for others to do the same. This next chapter in your life, Scorpio, is not about being liked. It's not about being accepted. It's about being aligned. And when you are aligned, you become undeniable. You no longer ask for space. You take it with grace, with power, with purpose. Because you are no longer living in reaction to your pain, you are living in devotion to your rebirth. Life lesson. Part 6. Leadership doesn't begin when people follow you. It begins when you stop following your fear. You were never too much. They were simply too small to hold what you came here to become. Part 7. The final release before the moon. There are thresholds in life that don't come twice. This is one of them. The moon is preparing to turn. The air has changed. And the portal you've been sensing, the one that's been pulling at you quietly for weeks, is reaching its final opening. But before you can walk through, there is one final act required. You must release, completely, permanently, with no negotiation. Because this isn't just about leaving behind a situation, it's about leaving behind a version of yourself you've spent years surviving with. And that is terrifying. Because even the prison can feel like home if you've lived in it long enough. But Spirit is not asking you to be fearless. Spirit is asking you to be ready. Ready to grieve the illusions. Ready to stop waiting for apologies. Ready to stop looking back, hoping the people who hurt you will one day understand what they broke. They won't. And even if they did, it wouldn't change what your soul already knows. You don't belong there anymore. So this is the part of the journey where words no longer help, where logic becomes a cage, where healing must move beyond thought into ritual. Scorpio, here is what I offer you: a practice, a small quiet ceremony, not for others, just for you. Write a letter to the version of yourself who stayed too long, to the version who accepted less than they deserved, to the one who kept giving hoping they'd be chosen, and to the one who finally realized they had to choose themselves. Say everything. The anger, the sorrow, the regret, the hope. Then fold it, hold it to your chest, and speak these words aloud. I release you with honor. I forgive what had to break, and I bless what must now begin. Then burn it, or bury it, or let it dissolve in water under the moonlight. Let it leave your hands so that your soul can finally be free to rise. Because you cannot carry this into what comes next. It is not allowed. Not by the universe, and not by the highest version of yourself waiting on the other side of this moment. And remember, this release is not weakness, it is the final form of courage. Let me tell you a truth I've witnessed again and again. Scorpios don't fear the dark. They fear what must be left behind in order to reach the light. Because leaving behind is never easy for a heart as deep as yours. But if you stay, you betray every part of you that prayed for this transformation. So tonight, or on the night of the new moon, make your choice. Not with noise, not with drama, but with devotion. You are not letting go of your past. You are setting it free. And in doing so, you are setting yourself free too. Life lesson. Part 7, closure. Doesn't come from them. It comes from you deciding that healing matters more than being understood. Don't wait for peace to be given. Create it with fire, with truth, and with your own hands. Part 8. Messages from Spirit. By now, Scorpio, you've felt it. In your body, in your dreams, in the space between seconds where something unseen seems to tug at your awareness and say, pay attention. Spirit doesn't always speak in words. It speaks in patterns, in symbols, in moments that make your skin rise even when no one else notices a thing. Have you been waking at the same time every night, seeing the same numbers over and over again? 11, 11, 10, 10, 4, 44. Or catching a name that keeps appearing in conversations, songs, dreams, as if it's following you. These are not accidents, they're alignments. Spirit speaks when the soul is ready to listen. But here's the truth. Not every message comes with comfort. Some messages feel like disruption, a door slamming, a phone call that shakes you, an unexpected breakdown, a sudden silence from someone you never thought would leave. But remember this, not every collapse is chaos. Sometimes it's choreography. Sometimes it's spirit rearranging your life to match the vibration you've finally risen to. Let me offer you some signs to pay attention to now, because they're not random, they are personal, they are for you. If you've been seeing dragonflies, they represent the soul in flight, a transformation that can no longer be delayed. It means you're shedding illusions and beginning to see life through a clearer lens, one that belongs to your higher self, not your history. If your electronics keep glitching, that's energy interruption, a sign that your spiritual frequency is increasing and the physical realm is struggling to keep up. Slow down, ground yourself. You're being recalibrated. If you've felt sudden aches in the body, especially in the chest, stomach, or throat, ask yourself, what truth am I holding back? What grief have I swallowed instead of releasing? Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. And if people from your past have suddenly reappeared through dreams, thoughts, or real-life contact, don't be quick to invite them back. Ask yourself, are they here to join your future or just to test your growth? This is a critical moment because when your light begins to rise, so does the attention of energies that are not meant to come with you. Not all spirits are loving. Not all memories are messages. And not all invitations are meant to be answered. You must learn to discern, to trust not just the sign but the vibration behind it. Because spirit will never manipulate, it will never beg, it will never rush. That voice in your chest that feels calm but clear, that's spirit. The one that shouts, that panics, that plays on your fear and guilt, that's not guidance, that's programming. Scorpio, your intuition is not just a gift, it's a survival mechanism, and you've had it since birth. Even before you had language, you had instinct. Now is the time to return to that power. Let the numbers speak. Let the symbols lead. But above all, let your soul choose what enters your field. Protect your energy as if it were your life, because in many ways it is. And if you need something tangible, carry rose quartz to soften your heart without reopening the wound. Use Himalayan salt in warm water to draw out old grief. Keep obsidian or black tourmaline near your bed to shield your dream state from interference. You're not just being guided, you're being protected. And when the noise gets loud, center yourself in this one truth. Your intuition will never lie to you, but your fear will dress itself in its voice if you're not listening close. Life Lesson, Part 8. Not every sign is a green light. Some are warnings, some are mirrors, some are echoes from a past that's still begging to survive. Listen closely because the spirit within you is louder than all of them combined. Part 9. Life Lesson and Emotional Closure. Scorpio, everything you've been through, the breaking, the burning, the silence, the whispers you ignored, the love you lost, the parts of yourself you buried just to be enough. None of it was wasted. Because here you are, still breathing, still listening, still searching for a truth that no one else could hand you because it was always yours to remember. You were never lost. You were just layered beneath too many identities that were never yours to carry. Daughter, savior, caretaker, shadow. But beneath them all, there was always a soul that came to evolve, not to obey. This is what they won't tell you about healing. It hurts, not because you're broken, but because you're finally putting down the weight of pretending you weren't. And that's the paradox, Scorpio. The real pain isn't in letting go, it's in the years you held on. But that ends here, now, because now you see it. The people who left didn't abandon you. They freed the space you needed to find yourself. The things that collapsed weren't punishments. They were closed doors to false futures. And the version of you that cried in silence, who bent over backward to be loved, who apologized for being too much, was never weak. They were just waiting for you to come back and say, you're allowed to leave this pain behind. You are. So if there's one truth to leave with one truth that spirit has been pushing into your chest over and over again, it's this. You don't have to become anything. You just have to become honest. You don't have to prove you've healed. You just have to stop pretending that you're not hurting. You don't have to wait for permission to rise. You just have to stop kneeling in rooms where no one ever planned to see you stand. You were born for transformation, not for their comfort, not for their approval, not to be explained or managed or understood. You were born for the kind of light that blinds the people who only knew how to love you in your darkness. So stand in it now, fully, without apology, without explanation. And if your voice shakes, let it. If your hands tremble, let them. That's how you know the past is leaving your body. That's how you know you're being rewritten from the inside out. No more half-life, no more shrinking, no more giving your soul in exchange for crumbs of love. This is your rebirth. And not everyone gets to come with you, but the ones who meet you here in the aftermath, they will know you not by your pain, but by your presence. Because you've earned this, and nothing can take it from you now. Life Lesson, Part 9. There is no becoming without unbecoming. There is no light without loss. And there is no rebirth until you're willing to let the old you die in peace. Part 10. Call to action. If you've made it this far, it wasn't by accident. Something in your spirit brought you here, not for entertainment, not for prediction, but for remembrance. So I want to ask you what part of today's message spoke directly to your soul, not your mind, not your story, but the part of you that has been waiting for this kind of truth for years. Tell me. In the comments below, share the moment that hit you hardest. Share the piece you're finally ready to release. Or just write one word that holds your transformation. Because when you write it, you claim it. And when you claim it, the universe moves. And if your soul whispered to you during this message, if something within you stirred a line or simply said, "This is where I belong," then I invite you to subscribe. Not because you owe me anything, but because this space was created for souls like yours who are ready to remember who they are. And if you ever need to return, this message will be here. The door never closes on truth. It only waits for you to be ready. Take care of your light, Scorpio. It's sacred, it's powerful, and it's just beginning. I'll see you when you're ready for the next chapter. Before we begin, Scorpio, if you feel life more deeply than others, if your silence has always hidden a sacred fire, and if you're ready to walk a path of deep spiritual truth and personal transformation, then this space was created for you. This is the path to Buddha wisdom, and what you'll find here is not entertainment, but revelation. So if you feel it in your chest right now that this isn't just another video, but something your soul has been waiting for, I invite you to subscribe. You were never meant to walk this alone. Now, let us begin.